What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have a very special guest. He's a business strategist, speaker, entrepreneur, optimizing your business. Guys, he has been to many events, and he's helping so many people around the world. Guys, he's amazing as a person, as a human, and he does so much impact and good for people. Help us welcome the one and only Jake Havron. What's up, brother?
What's going on, fellas? It felt like I just saw you guys in Miami not too long ago.
I know, man. I know. When are you coming back?
Oh, we'll have to make a special trip out there, go do some business deals.
You gotta just move your ass down here already, man.
Yeah, now that we could actually travel again, you know.
About time, man.
It is about time. Hey, good excuse to be down here too. Why?
Hey, it's isn't it like the best time to be down there right now? Is around this time where it's not too muggy.
Man, I'll tell you, yesterday was amazing. Yesterday night was beautiful. It was like 64, 63, no humidity, cool, beautiful night. Beautiful night. Yeah, if you're gonna come and you want to enjoy nights like that, you come around January or February. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, now you're putting a time limit on my. You're putting some real urgency, as we call it.
I know, bro. I'm trying to get you down here already. That's the problem.
If I showed you the view I'm looking at, if you guys could see on obviously video, but if you listen to audio, you'll understand why it's hard to leave where I'm at right now. I'm looking at the Pacific Ocean. So,
I might move over there with you, man.
Oh man. So Jake, brother, tell everybody here a little bit about, what got you to the position that you are today. And I know we have some relatability in the sense of, both coming from the fitness world, the health world, but really walk us through some of those pinnacle moments in your life that, got you and positioned you to be who you are right now.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to be on this podcast because I know a lot of your listeners probably were in that situation of being a health coach or currently are. And I was a health coach, and it all started actually just, even though it feels like a decade, it was only 4 years ago. I graduated college as a nurse, and I played basketball 4 years. But, even before that, I actually grew up in Hawaii my entire life. So I kind of faced adversity from a young age, even though you wouldn't expect it. I was the tall white kid, which usually people think that's like, an advantage, but that was actually a reason to get bullied throughout high school because I was just in, a public school in Hawaii. And obviously there was a lot of ups and downs with that. I was overweight. I was playing basketball nonstop, but I couldn't lose weight. And I was like 180 pounds at 5'8". And that's like a pretty chunky kid. I was still pretty active, but I was chunky. And I realized that probably was my habits of coming home and eating cookie dough after practice.
Damn, I was a real chunky kid.
Yeah. So, it's funny when you have some personal development and you look back at your life, you realize the breaking moments, the breakthroughs that you had no clue of. I call it subconscious incompetence, right? You just don't know what you don't know. And it was 7th to 8th grade where I was 180 pounds, and I was like, I'm sick of feeling fat. Like I want to be in the gym in the PE room and take my shirt off and I could have like somewhat of like abs, right? That was always my dream. And so I went on and searched all these workouts, P90X. I started eating like edamame by the pounds because back then edamame was the biggest hit, now it's a little different with the soy protein. And I went to GNC and got all these supplements that half of them are probably, not legal anymore. If you guys know Jack 3D, that
was nuts.
That changed
LA
my
Fitness days.
I was the sweet little kid that turned into temper tantrums real quick. I'll tell you with that. But I lost 40 pounds over summer. And that's where I really found my personal identity in fitness, because I finally was confident in the sense of people could look at me and, I could feel confident. And then what happened too, guys, is that I started to build my appreciation to helping other people, because I had people ask me, how did you get like that? Like, how do you get arms like what you have? And so I was just helping them naturally. And that's kind of like where that genesis of helping people came from. But anyways, fast forward, I got a full scholarship to go to North Dakota, play basketball, get a nursing degree. And it was after nursing, I just realized it just wasn't my vehicle, and if anyone's a nurse on here, I respect everything you do. But I just realized it's not my calling to get people out of the hospital, because there'll be people that I give them all the right strategies, and coaches can relate with this, but if they don't have the right mindset, even in the nursing field, I had a guy that had a life-threatening illness. He was on his deathbed with a heart attack, and his family was there mourning, and he finally got out of his coma, and he was like, looked over his family, started crying, all these things. And I gave him all the right prescriptions, the workouts, and he was like, yeah. Oh my God, Jake, he's just elated. And what broke me is a couple months later, while working in the ER, that same guy was on the deathbed coming in for another heart attack. And it took me a second to realize who it was. But when I did, it ripped me apart and inside. And obviously I went and did my job, but I just realized this wasn't my calling anymore. Yeah. Because I can give them all the right answers, but if they don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter.
So you started then getting people away from the hospitals, from not even getting in there.
Yeah. So, everyone knows about their little catch lines and elevator pitches. Yeah. And created my own. I said, instead of getting people at the hospital, I start keeping them out. And so I actually went back to Hawaii with my nursing degree, and I pursued personal training. I loved fitness. I actually competed myself in physique, and I started having people reach out to me. And this is something that maybe a lot of people could resonate is, I remember just had my personal Instagram page, and I made that step one day. And this is before I was personally developed, but I made that step. I was like, you know what? I want to make content. If people want to see it, just as you guys probably made a podcast, if people want to listen to it, they'll listen to it, and we're not forcing things on them. And I made a fitness page. And after I was sharing my journey and was aligned with that, a person reached out and said, hey, do you do online training? And you look like really good, and I want to learn your ways. And over here, I'm on my couch at my parents' house after college, not making a dime. And I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, what are you looking for? And so I go get certified, all these things, and I sell my first package.
How much for?
It was 12 weeks, dude. I drafted it up on a Google sheet years ago I remember so vividly. I was at my parents' house because I was like, I'm not going to go live at a house when I move back home. So let me go make some money, whatnot. And I sell it for a whopping $147 for 12 weeks. Damn. And I was elated. I yelled upstairs. I was like, Mom, I got my first customer. And I was just so excited. And that was the start of it all. And so much of us look at where we're at now and the guy's doing big business deals and traveling around. It's it started from a small little conversation like that with someone that paid me $147. And, then that's kind of where my journey came from.
Dude, it's so crazy because when you start really listening to a lot of entrepreneurs out there and you start really listening to the root of their stories, and it always comes to there's always that one breakthrough. And let's say as an example in business and sales, when you get that first taste of what it is to sell your product at whatever price it is, it's the best fucking feeling in the world. You feel like you're the champion on top of the world. You're like, I'm gung ho, let's go. I'm about to close another 10 of them right now. And then boom. Then you get faced with the business reality. And then that's when you're like, okay, I got to build a system. I got to build consistency. I got to build drive. I got to build something that's going to be sustainable. What did you do from there on? How were you able to then capitalize on what you first did there and then turn that into an actual business?
Yeah, it's so good you bring that up because I'll be giving some really applicable hacks that allow for performance hacks on what you just shared with how to ingrain that win, that nervous system high of dopamine. There's ways to do that. I was actually on a mastermind this morning before this podcast sharing this to multi-7-figure entrepreneurs, and they were like, never heard of this. So stay tuned for that for sure. But fast forward, and I want to make this really clear. I had no personal development there. Even though I was the captain, especially on my senior year of college, I had a C on my chest, but I didn't resemble a C. I didn't resemble a captain. I couldn't lead my people. I didn't have much confidence in myself. So what happened is I worked with that guy. I was actually supposed to play professional basketball for Hawaii. Long story short, I got my contract signed. And then 2 weeks before that happened, the whole program collapsed. The coach dipped. It was just a crazy mess. And I was devastated. And I was like, man, that was my only shot to play pro ball. I was so excited. But that door closing literally opened up the door of becoming a personal trainer at a gym. And I am so grateful for the life I have now because that door closed, right? So you don't always see that right away. But if you're going through tough times, just know that you have to look around, pause, take a deep breath, and look around. What are the other doors that are presenting itself? Because it's bigger and better. And I had that own experience. So I went and became a personal trainer. I was like, well, I might as well go and do this work, and then maybe I'll go be a nurse to make some money later, but I wasn't planning to be a nurse. And that's when I started diving deep on podcasts. My very first podcast was Ed Milet and Andy Frisilla. My friend told me about it. I had no clue what a podcast is, but I'm listening every day. I'm learning skills, learning sales, learning different development tools. And so I'm going to personal training. And because I was so aligned with it, guys, because I was aligned with what I did, I didn't care if I wasn't making as much money as a nurse. People were coming to me because they knew that I cared about what I did. And really quick, my business started taking off. I maxed out my schedule. I was working with all these clients. And I'll be completely honest, I had people ridicule me. They're like, you left nursing to be a trainer? Like, even my own family, they were like, that's not a long-term job. You're not making as much money. Like, this was from my mom. She said this. She was like, there's no health insurance, right? Our moms always worry about those type of things. Yeah. But I had to go beyond that and say, you know what? I know what I want. And I didn't know where I could be, but I knew I'm going to go far somewhere. And so I then transitioned into getting a mentor. That was the biggest shift in my entire life. I had no clue what a mentor was. It's about 8 months into my training. And I was like, I need to have more time. I want to travel the world, but how do I do that? I was like, I don't know how to provide more value. And serendipitously at a Lewis Howes event, I met this woman in the line that had a mentor that helped with fitness. And I just took the jump. I trusted her. I got on a webinar years ago and I was like, I'm probably gonna get sold. I don't know what this is, but I trusted her, and trust is a huge factor. So if there's someone that's teaching you something, especially you guys are bringing trust to the people listening to this. Like, if you guys trust Bryan and trust Anthony, and they recommend something, know that they're doing it out of the best of their intentions. If you feel that alignment, like, trust. I had to trust her, and I spent like thousands and thousands of dollars that I didn't have. And that is when it changed. That's when literally in 1 month, I made more money than I could even imagine. All my limiting beliefs of people paying me more money to train them when I'm not even there in person, it all changed. And that's when my life completely changed, and it just took it to the next level.
Did you ever have any doubt or fear? And this is what a lot of entrepreneurs face. In the process, they like to think that, it's just a calling. I don't feel fearful. Or that a guy like Jake or Bryan or Anthony, these guys don't get scared. Were you ever scared or fearful in that? Because the nursing thing is big.
Absolutely. And it doesn't help when you're having your own loved ones and friends and people that are smart saying, what are you doing? I was like, every day I was hounded. When are you going to get your nursing license? When are you going to start working there and make that income? I see what you're doing is great, but when are you going to actually do the thing that quote unquote is going to support you? And so for me, one thing is I enjoyed what I did. So I had a lot of fun, but to be really applicable, you got to be smart, I also work with people that are in network marketing or leaders of that sense. And, you don't just dive in without a plan. And some people quit their job, or they try to go all in and they say, I'm just going to put my intentions towards it and work. But you got to have a plan to that. I had a plan. I was making sure that my, even though I was making only a couple $1,000s a month, I was being smart with my spendings. So that way, when I had the opportunity, right? Because I got that opportunity to invest in that mentor at the right time, I actually had the money to do that. And I didn't put myself in a bad position. And that's when it changed. So absolutely, there was so much fear. There was so much where am I going with this? How am I going to scale and help more people? Am I going to ever make more than $3,000 a month as a trainer? Am I ever going to be able to travel wherever and whenever I want? I had doubts, but I just had to go daily on the process of just serving my clients, because I knew those were the people that were bringing in the money. I'd actually bring results, because if not, they wouldn't continue working with me. And from there, amazing opportunities came up, because at the end of the day, when you serve your clients over yourself, business is infinite.
And it's all with that one word, because you had the belief in yourself. You believed yourself that you can do this. And no matter what family, friends would say, you still did what you wanted to do. And yes, does it bother? Does it hurt? Does it sometimes get you down? 100%. I can remember, he can even tell you, Bryan, from, family members telling me, if this is a route you're taking, well, you're going to end up being a garbage man one day, if you don't end up finishing school. Or even hearing from people I remember the gym, they would be like, personal training. So what else do you do? Or what else are you going to do?
So many times,
how many times, I was going to say, how many times you've gotten that, and it's one of those things where it's like, hey, little do you know that if I really wanted to, take this to the next level and put all my drive into it, I can turn this into a much bigger business than you might even know or experience yourself. And that's why I say, I think with people all the time is you got to cancel that noise around you from friends, from family members, from acquaintances, coworkers, because at the end of the day, most of the time it's because they're self-reflecting on you. And many times they're scared that you're going to also change and leave them one day, and that you're not going to be there anymore. And they don't want that. They want to, whether they're doing it in a way that they're trying to look out for you because they love you or not, you have to cancel the noise.
Yeah, it's so spot on what you just shared there, and I hope everyone picks that up. It's a self-reflection or self-projection of what they're putting on you, and it's them being truly afraid that you're going to leave them behind. I had a lot of friends that were friends, like close, like hanging out, sleepovers all the time, high school, all that. And I got resistance once I was pursuing my passions and getting bold on social media. When they saw me putting out powerful posts and confidence and things, I started to see that they would find things to nitpick at. And I'm like, excuse me?
What's one of the biggest things that you would say right now that you can know from the top of your head that somebody told you that you're like, what the close person on your social media content?
I remember when I partnered with a health and wellness company, and I'm still with them to this day. And I remember right away when I partnered and put my name behind this company, which has so much integrity, has been around for almost 20 years. I got a lot of kickback on like, oh, that's, now you're selling yourself out. Like, that those products, they don't have, like, they just were putting all this facade out there when they don't. And if you look at the studies, look at the science, it's all the truth of what they were saying was a lie. And that really hurt me because, to be honest, that affected me too. And I'm going to be completely real. It made me second guess my decision. And I've had those multiple times. But the thing that I've had to train myself, and then maybe this is something to really take away here for someone listening, is when you have those it's like you want to have, so when you do, when you have performance tips and creating habits, anytime you have an anchor and you anchor something to a certain stimulus. So the stimulus was me having that second guess. Right away, I now change that. I might not catch it right away, but as soon as I do, I change that and say, oh, this is a second guess. This is me doubting myself. How can I turn this into something that then reinforces my decision? So for the health and wellness, when I partnered with them with their products and their nutrition, and I got that, well, instead I was like, well, he's doubting the efficacy of the science and the quality of the ingredients. Instead of me second guessing it, let me go down to the root source and figure this out. So I went to, my business partners and I was like, what's the answers to this? Like, how are the products the best of the best? How do they, and I got the answers, and that's what reinforced me stronger to believe in what I'm doing. And that's a little like performance hack of whenever you second doubt or second guess, reframe that and say, how can I be even more confident in this and find solutions to that?
And that's powerful. That is powerful, especially when you have a business and it's growing. And you can see at times a lot of people who are starting entrepreneurship, if they have the success that you've had and they're growing, they're serving, they're providing more, there's an issue with the plateau. And have you ever had that issue in your business where you feel like, all right, you're growing too big, you plateau? How do you break out of that? Or what's the advice you give an up-and-coming entrepreneur who is plateauing and wants to get to the next level?
Well, the only way to get to the next level, truly, if you do it right, and the fastest and most effective way, is you got to talk to people that are at that next level. You got to get around those people, and not all the time you'll know exactly who that person is. That's why I always say immerse yourself and proximity is power. So like, when I get into these masterminds, or I go to Tony Robbins events, or I go to events where I see, Bryan and Anthony here live in Miami a couple weeks ago, I'm building my immersion and my network. And network is such a rundown word. It's almost like networking is like almost sleazy now. But what I'm doing is I'm now filling my subconscious mind with all these names and people of what they do, so that if I ever have to reach out to them after I give them massive value, which is one of the things I'd love to talk about, is how to give massive value. It's one of the most powerful but underused things today for entrepreneurs. but I build this network. So when I hit this plateau, like for me, like for example, like I'm finalizing my business mastermind because I've been doing one-on-one consulting. And this actually is the further progression of my story, where I went from health coaching to business coaching, just like you guys, because I love helping people make money. And this is all different industries, not just fitness. But I'm now scaling into a business mastermind. And one of the biggest things is that I don't want to have a watered down vanilla mastermind that you see out there. So I've been very hesitant, and I've actually put it on pause for a bit because I could get results for anyone one-on-one, but it's like, how do I serve more people? Just like how I went from in-person training to online. But one of the things that I did is, because I've been networking and connecting with so many people, I now know who to reach out to and ask for their advice because I see them doing it right. And because I gave them so much value and I didn't just ask for something right when I saw them, it's almost like an ATM service, right? I put in so much money into it that now if I ask for a little cash back, there's so much to give that it's no problem for them.
Totally.
But too many people are going in overdraft because they're putting no money in, and now they're asking for expenses, and now they're getting charged all these fees, or they're losing their opportunity to ever partner with that person. Does that make sense?
100%, 100%. And there's something here that I think, and I'm sure you're going to agree. How many people did you have to get out of your life to bring in new people like the ones you've been networking in into your life?
It's such an interesting question, because I know that a lot of people will probably say a lot of people, but to be honest, I've always been kind of like an alpha wolf in the sense of I've had friends, but I've only really hung around with like one or two like best friends, right? I'm not the type of guy that has a big circle of people, especially back then when I was first starting this. But I would say there was a few people I had to slowly distance, and I love them and I love upon them, but I had to slowly distance the nonsensical play and adventure and things that weren't serving my purpose. Like I had to go in all day and night. I was studying YouTube videos. I was, listening to podcasts every time I would drive. I stopped playing music in my car for years. I used to bump music in high school.
It ain't making you money.
It ain't making me money. And I used to have two 12-inch subwoofers in my car in high school, and I would bump, Skrillex and all these good, good songs. And I thought, guy. But I stopped doing that. And now I'm bumping, Les Brown and Tony Robbins, driving to the gym every day. So I didn't have to cut so many people out. But, one thing, and I was talking to my significant other, Emily, about this, is like, and one of the things that worked so amazing between us is that we have the same purpose and passion, and we're also like best friends. We don't hang out with many people. We have a lot of acquaintances, and we love being with them when we're with them. But when we're like by ourselves, we're working, we're hustling, we love it. We're not working ourselves to the grave, but we're very, very particular with who we surround ourselves. And I'm not going to dinner with someone that they don't always have to just serve me, because that's not a good relationship. But if they have any sort of energy vampire vibes, I'll just say, hey, I'm really booked right now, or I'm just busy, maybe another time. And that's how I do it.
Protecting your time and energy.
Protecting it. And knowing Emily and you, how, and for our viewers that are watching this, because you guys are both badasses in your own right. You guys are animals killing it in the game. How is it having the relationship or having a partner that you guys are pushing each other? Like, what's an advice that you can give somebody out there that they're with their partner, but they see, hey, you might not be growing as fast as I am. What would you tell that other partner to do to elevate their other partner into that level?
Oh, I see this so much. And I only could speak, and I'm not ever someone that speaks on theories. I speak on relativity. And that's maybe an important thing for these coaches and people listening in too, is like, this is my first real significant relationship, and it's going to be the one and only. But when I share these stories, I share of clients I've worked with, I've shared with people that I've actually helped with, and that's a way to build credibility. But I have so many clients that I was actually talking to one of my guys. He's very, very successful in real estate, $15 million portfolio, runs a multi-million-dollar practice. Like, he's got a lot on his hands, but he's all into self-development. And he recently went to a Tony Robbins event, Unleash the Power Within, and he actually brought his wife. And he thought it would be the same experience because he had this certain outlook on things, right? He had a certain expectation of what the outcome would be. And his wife didn't have it. And he was like heartbroken and he felt defeated. Like she actually didn't like it. You know, she just wasn't in her right season. And so we actually had to go through that and this whole process of how to still support her and have her be the best she could be without ever pushing things onto your spouse or significant other. Because if you're in a situation right now where you're a thriving entrepreneur and your spouse maybe doesn't have those same ambitions, you can still find a way. It might be a little tougher, but you can still find a way to allow them to be their best, but do not force them to saying things such as like, hey, babe, you should really watch this video. I think it will really help you with that thing you're struggling with. Or, hey, I got this podcast. Oh my gosh, you should come. Or, hey, let's go to this event. Like, you never want to force that on. Instead, I love doing this thing called wordsmithing. You want to do, if I would you is a great thing. So it's a transaction of energy saying that you're going to do something, so they should do something. Hey, babe, if I was to send you this podcast to help with that problem you're having, would you want to listen to it? Or when would you want to listen to it? Right? That's even more powerful than not would you, because would is yes or no, but when is today or tomorrow. Yep. You see what I'm saying? So the whole overall thing I'm saying, I would share here is I'm very grateful that Emily and I, we have a mission to serve and do things that like Tony Robbins is doing today. And we want to do that together. But if you're in a situation where you don't have another powerhouse like that, ask them and pull them with you. Don't push them with you. If you pull, it's a whole different type of energy. And it's just a small little shift of words, not saying, hey, you should listen to this. It's instead, if I sent you this, would you listen to it? Or when would you listen to it? You see that?
Totally, 100%. And let's dive a little bit even deeper on that, because I know there's a lot of people out here who have their significant other. Some might be entrepreneurs together. Some might not. You know, one might be, the other might not. Let's say in the position of, let's say you do get, you know, in your case, you and Emily, you guys are two, you know, power, alpha, dominant leaders in a relationship. You know, many times there's people you'll see that there's a lot of headbutting, right? So what is it that you guys do to make that work, to realize that you guys, you know, can communicate, you know, together, both being alphas in their respective areas and not having the collide and the clashing all the time? Because I know that's a typical thing you see always and forever. And who's going to own the spotlight? Who's going to be the one in this? How do you guys do it? Because I'll tell you right now, you know, from what I've heard, from what I've seen you guys in person and on social and just talking, it's like, wow, this is cool. This is really interesting.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the headbutting thing, because it's so easy to do that if we choose to. It's so easy when you're both alphas and you are, and for her, she's a big time speaker all over the world. I think she was on your podcast before. Yeah. So the listeners, you'll know who I'm talking about, but it's easy to have that happen if you let it. And so there's two things I want to go into this with. Number one is I had to personally develop myself well beyond or well before I met her, or else I wouldn't have kept her. I'll say it again. I had
say it one more time.
I had to personally develop myself well before I met her, or I wouldn't have kept her. And what I mean by that is, and very vividly, we met right before the whole lockdown and pandemic, March 2020. It was actually at one of my speaking events. But a couple months before that, I went to Date with Destiny for Tony Robbins. If you guys know about that, or anyone listening has been to Date with Destiny, you know how powerful that is. It's transformative. And one of the most powerful things that I've learned there is the masculine and feminine energy. And understanding that and implementing, applying that changed everything, because even as a powerhouse woman, she's still a feminine being. And I had to really know how to nurture that and how to allow her to put down her walls and her alpha state when it doesn't need to be up. And that only comes from me being more of a masculine energy. And that doesn't mean strong and broad and all these things. It means being very certain and very confident and very like a pillar that you could lean on and holding true to my word. And I'm not perfect at that, right? You slip up, you have slip ups, but when you slip up, you own it. You don't try to cover it up. That's immature masculine. You own it and you move forward with certainty, and then she could trust you on that. And so number one was I had to work on myself. If you want to attract a woman like her, if you guys know who she is, she's quite special. But if you want to attract and keep a woman like that, or a man and vice versa, you got to work on yourself, deep work, like personal work, not just business work, right? The second thing, and it's funny, we actually had a deep conversation, because one of the things we focus on when we have date nights is being able to just have good communication and put the phones aside. We're not on the phones, even if we want to check it or whatnot, because those little moments where you can instead check your phone, you talk, allows for deeper conversation. And so that's one of our commitments. But we talked during Miami, which she was speaking at a big event, and you guys were there, and that's where we connected. And we're like, we need to get on this podcast. But I shared with her, I was like, she's on this big event. I'm feeling her, alphaness. And I was like, it's so funny, Emily. I was like, you would think that you being at this event, I would get like a little like flustered. But I was like, that's not the case. I was like, I shared a random little story of where I was flustered. She was like getting her outfits, tried on, because she wears beautiful outfits. And I was like, I wish this was me, right? Like, I wish I was a random thing. But I told her, I was like, one of the things, if we could work on, because this is a question that if you're in a relationship, I recommend asking this question, especially like on date nights, to really drive some deep communication, is, if there was one thing I could improve on, because you already know I'm perfect, but if there was one thing I could improve on, what would that be? And if you guys are in a great relationship, it's going to be tough to think about that. If you've never asked this question, there might be a list of 1,000, right? But even if things are great, even if things are great, you should still ask this, because there's things that, she was like, I don't know. And she shared some things after, and I was like, oh, amazing. Thank you. And she was like, well, what about you? And then once again, I was like, oh gosh, everything's great. I was like, you know what though? And I thought on it. I was like, this is how we work on the headbutting thing. I was like, I think if we could better share the spotlight and just be more aware of who has the spotlight at what time, I was like, that would be the game changer, because there's only small little moments where, like, I know you're full head, you're head deep in your business. I'm head deep in mine. You're doing all this traveling. I'm here in Miami with you right now. It's amazing. I'm giving you a spotlight. I was like, if only there's small little times, like if I want to share my new website I'm creating or my new mastermind, and you just give me 3 minutes, that's enough I need for the whole day. I'm not asking to be a pleaser or to have a pleasing woman that's always just, serving me. I was like, just a little more spotlight time that's very intentional. She's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. Yeah, done and done. And it's been amazing ever since. Little things like that, my friends, asking those questions and not being reactive changes everything. If she says something about me that hurts my internal confidence, when she says, oh, you could improve so-and-so or such and such, I ask the question, so don't get reactive. If I get reactive, I close her off real quick. Totally. So I'm trying to work on that, but that's how we really handle that alpha balance is being very open communication, and also sharing that spotlight more effectively.
It's so crazy when you actually think about how, it's like when you hear it, you're like, man, it's just how you can make it so simple to just ask the right questions and frame it in the right way and just be genuine about it. And yet we as humans, we make it so hard, right? Because we let that ego or get in the way, or we let that current mood overtake us, and we could just take a step back and just let's analyze, and let's see how we can communicate properly to get the right answers we want to get the outcome that we're looking for.
Or you don't want to hurt their feelings. I think it comes down to a lot of people are just shy to tell their partner the truth, and then
that too.
They feel bad if they say something that's been bothering them probably for years, and then they're scared of them to walk away because they say that.
And it goes like in partnerships too, like in business and everything. Like, how many times have we tell each other stuff, to help each other out because we care, we love each other, and it's like if we don't do that, and obviously there's a way to do it, but if we don't do that, it's because we really don't want to help. If you only do that because you do want to ultimately help that person and help what you guys have, and I think that's amazing, man. So
yeah, one thing I want to add on that, because I love giving application here.
Do it.
Because if I'm listening to a podcast, and I know who's listening to this, but if I was the listener, I want application, right? Because stories are great, but things that change my life are better. And one thing that, Bryan, you said, which is you want to share the truth and you don't want to hurt them with the truth, though. I live by this phrase in business, but also in relationships, is pre-frame is the name of the game. pre-frame is the name of the game. You guys, if you're in sales or you sell your own coaching business, you already know what pre-framing is. Pre-framing the entire expectation. They could potentially pay you if they like what they see, Relationships is just as important. If I know there's something I want to address with even a friend or a business partner, I make sure I pre-frame it. So let's say it's something that was bugging between us, or I felt like it had to be called out for whatever reason between Emily and I. The pre-frame I could do is as simple as like, hey, Em, like when you get a moment or later tonight, I would love to talk with you about something. It's been on my mind. Or, hey, I know if it's right in that moment, it's pre-framing and saying, hey, I know this might be uncomfortable, but like, would you be open to talking about something that's been bothering me? Like, I do want you to have an open space though, and not just get reactive if I share this because it might hurt. Like saying things like that will help pre-frame so her expectations know where it's going and she won't get reactive because you said, I don't want you to get reactive. Let's talk about it. Or, if it's a business partner that's doing really bad in your business, let's say it's an employee or independent contractor that you hired or someone off Fiverr, you also pre-frame them. You say, hey, let's get on a call, and you get on a call like, look, I really want to talk to you about where we're going with this business and also how can we improve, right? So there's some things that we got to work on here I'll bring up, but I want to let you know when I talk about this, it's not attacking you. It's actually allowing us to improve together. Does that make sense? And then they'll be like, absolutely. That right there changes the entire perception of the conversation when they hear that.
Love that. And I want to say one funny thing here. I'm like, all the listeners, guys, don't do this. Don't go to an event like Tony Robbins and then come back home the same night and be like, start trying to use that shit on your significant other right there and then. They're going to be like, yeah, you're trying to use that shit that you just learned from wherever you were. I know what you're doing, right? So I always laugh because it's like there's a way to do it. You don't also want to be that person coming back from that same event now trying to like lash out all these different tools at this person, and now you're going to just make matters worse for yourself too.
It's so true. It's so true.
And you,
like, hey, you know what? Have you ever changed your life, honey?
Yeah.
You want to change your life tonight? I'll take you through 3 questions that will completely change the way you look at your past. It's like, no.
Who the fuck are you?
Shiva, get out of my face. What's wrong with you?
Oh man.
And I want to get into a little while ago, you brought up about mentors and how important it is to invest in a mentor and have the right one. How did you spoke about how you stumbled upon your mentor. Do you currently have a mentor that you work with now, or what's your methodology on finding the right person that's in alignment with you? Because I think a lot of people need to understand, and they forget that alignment's everything. So what are the core values that you would say are important when looking for a mentor that's right for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm now in a phase of my life where, I would say right away, like Tony Robbins is my greatest mentor, right? I go to all his events, I listen to all his content, and obviously that's not the only content I listen to, but he's the one that's changed the most. He's not really a direct mentor because I'm not paying him. Like if I wanted him to mentor me one-on-one, it's like $1 million with the three-year wait list, right? It doesn't make sense. So this idea of mentorship starts to expand. If you're looking to get to a very specific area in your business, such as you're an in-person trainer and you want to learn how to build an online training business, you go and find people like Anthony and Bryan, and you get a mentor that's very specific in doing that, and you pay them money, right? If you're looking to scale your business or make more money than what you invest, that's what I do. I'm a business consultant and strategist, right? So I don't have one of those currently, but what I've done and what I've created is through building relationships, which relationships are everything, guys. You guys know this. It's a long-term game. Do not think about how I can get the short-term. It's just like, I know you guys talk about
long-term success.
Yeah, it's the same thing with investing. It's the same thing with relationships. Like, try to give as much value put into these people, because along the road, they will either connect you with a life-changing person or they will become that life-changing person for you. So I've built these relationships with very successful people. And so I have right now my own personal board of advisory. And these are people that I know that other people are paying $10, $20, $30, $50,000 for consulting and coaching. I've built a relationship where if anytime I need a business advice or guidance or need to get on a call with them, they're more than open to do that. And that's something that's just kind of like that next level. And some people might have that.
That's
right?
a skill in itself.
it's a skill in itself, and you could build your board advisory higher. Like I have like one of my guys on there. He's the #1 plastic surgeon in the world. He's a serial entrepreneur. I've been to his house and all these things and stayed there a couple of days, and we've worked together and we're friends. But like I reach out to him when I have high level leadership. He has I think 50 plus employees, and he has his own board of advisory of all the #1 plastic surgeons in the world. So like that's big business. I want to learn those things. Right. Then I also have like a peak performance coach that I reach out to. Shout out Trevor. And he used to work with Tony Robbins for like a decade. Right. So that's kind of like my board of advisory. But what I can say for you guys is that for listening in is find a mentor, because pretty soon you better believe that like I'm going to be, when I want to get into like bigger scale masterminds and give more value, I'm already in other people's masterminds. I guess that'll be a mentorship, to learn how they're doing it, to see how they're giving value, obviously to work on myself, but to see how they're doing it so I can model it, not mimic. That's a powerful thing here, is don't mimic, don't copy, model it and make it into your own. And that's what the saying says, stand on the shoulders of giants until you become in synchronicity with it. And then it becomes your own.
Powerful. And the reason why that's so powerful is because most people do the opposite. And most people, if most people would go chasing, I want to be exactly like that person and do exactly like this and do exactly like that, and they chase that, and I say, be inspired, but be you. Be inspired and go push forward, because I want to hang out at the level that these people are hanging out at, but do it in your own way, because you're unique. You're unique. And like you said, model their systems, their frameworks, how they got there, what they did, how they, became a high performer, and then put it in your own best way, because you yourself will become your own household name sitting amongst the giants.
And Anthony, there might be some people like listening that are just like, you know what, Jake, like, or guys, whatever, like, I don't have followers on social media. I'm just starting. Like, I'm not really I don't have that platform to really build these relationships. Let me debunk something here, because this is where I learned it really quick. And that's why I scaled in the past 4 years. I've scaled into a life I couldn't even dream of. And I could only imagine the next 4 is, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter about how much status you have. It doesn't even matter about how many followers you have. If you can bring positive, enlightening and empowering energy to every single conversation. So when you're out networking, you're just that guy that resonates with people a little different. If you have that 5 seconds to talk to that one person that you've admired so much and you leave a positive energy impression, I'll tell you right now, you might not have some sort of connection with them then, but the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or even 5th time that you come around them, because that's why proximity is power, they're going to remember you, right? And the second thing is, you got to set intentions. When you go network, this is one of those things that talk about massive value. And it's powerful stuff, is you got to have an intention of what's your outcome and also what's the value you give. You got to know, depending on what circle of influence you're in. Like if I go into a circle of influence where I know it's going to be a lot of people I could help fitness wise, I'll talk about my fitness program, because even though that's not my main thing I talk about on my social media, I know it's going to catch with them. Right. But if I go into some sort of networking event where it's people I can help in the business, I know that the value I'll give is some sort of advice. Don't mind the alarms going over here, the sirens in the background, if you can hear that.
Jake, they're coming for you.
You're dropping too much knowledge, man.
You're dropping too much knowledge. They're coming for you.
The building, the roof's getting on fire right
shoot.
now. All right, we're good. Is having that intention of what's that outcome? Because if you have 5 seconds to talk to someone and you know, I wish I could pull up a specific example, but if you know they're really powerful, you don't have anything you could give to them. Let me give you an example. Can I give you guys a quick example?
Give us the example.
Do it.
2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I have this video up on my Instagram. It was my second Lewis Howes event, and Ed Milet was speaking there. And I admire Ed Milet. He was one of the very first podcasts I listened to. Now amazing things are happening where I'm now in his circle.
You showed me this video.
Yeah. I asked a question because there was a Q&A, and I was like, this is my only moment to leave a positive impression. Who am I, right? I'm this guy in a sea of 1,000 people. He was on the stage with Lewis after, and I asked the question, and I formulated the question. I was thinking about it. I was like, I got to get called. So when they was like, who has a question? I raised my hand so freaking high that they could not deny it. And so they pointed out, I stood up, and my question was, one, to actually hear what Ed's answer is, but two, to stand out so he would remember that in some sense, even if it's just very subtle. And my question was like, Ed, I was like, you're obviously, well, first off, I want to just acknowledge you, Ed, for, the way that you seamlessly bring your faith into your message. And I'm a faith-driven person. I'm sure other people maybe are in here. And before I could even talk any further, the entire audience applauded and he said, well, thank you very much. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because I was like, how can I speak differently to Ed and not just say, you changed my life, thank you, oh my gosh. How could I give him a compliment that maybe he still wants to hear that from? Totally. And know that he's been working and he's now so much more in tune with his faith, where even a couple of years ago he wasn't as much, from what I've seen, but now he's like just sharing it wherever. And so I wanted to really affirm that. And then I asked the question, I was like, how does someone like you get massive value? I was like, you have all the things you want, you have all the cars, the house, the life. It's like, what's massive value to you? And he shared his answer, and it was around the lines of like, being able to leave meaningful messages or things about like very specifics, how he changed his life and all that. But what I share for you is that I didn't expect to have a conversation with him after that. I didn't expect any of that, but I wanted to leave a positive impression, because a year later I fly into a Tony Robbins event in JSX, and he's at the JSX airport, which is a commercial jet line. And he was there, and I got to spark a conversation with him. And I was, made sure I didn't look like a super fan or anything. That's another thing you don't want to do, is don't come off as a fan. But that was another touch point. And I started getting in the circle of him and speaking alongside him and his friends. And it's just only a matter of time. So think long game. And I tell you, anything's possible. It all starts with just leaving a positive impression.
Oh man, that's amazing. And there's a question here that I was thinking about, because you were talking about the fitness, the mentorship. How did you, because I know for a lot of fitness trainers and people in that space, how did you pivot to becoming a business specialist, helping these business owners scale their business
and drive that value?
It first comes off with, you got to know what your long-term game is. Once again, it's long game. You got to have, it's called the purpose statement, right? And I didn't refine this till recently, but I somewhat had it in there. The more clear you get on it though, the more proactive you could be. Jack Canfield talks about this really good. It's a purpose statement of what's your North Star, right? Before I got really clear on it, it was still similar. It was like being able to serve people, impact people, and just be able to just create a positive impact in this world for whatever that meant years ago. So there's always ways to grow, and you're always growing. If not, you're dying. So what happened is, when I fully transitioned to online coaching and I was a fitness coach, I had to be very adaptive. And that's another skill, is being flexible and adaptive and being able to pivot on the go. Doesn't mean that you get shiny object syndrome. It means that you be adaptive and grow. And I think that's a big problem people face nowadays, is shiny object syndrome. And I went to my very first Tony Robbins event, and I was sitting in the bleachers in the nosebleeds about a mile high. And I was looking down at the seats in the front row, and I was like, how much does people have to pay to be down there? Who do you have to know? Like all these things, right? Limiting beliefs. And by the grace of God, my business partner, Sarah, she got front row guest tickets because we were both sitting in the bleachers. She just did some good connections. She asked how to get down there. Someone found a way for her, and she got me tickets down there. I'm literally sitting in the front rows of all these successful people in this stadium of 16,000 people. And my mind is blown. But what happened is I started to network with these people. And once again, proximity is power. It's like, God, these people like are all successful. They have all the money in the world. They're crushing it. But a lot of them are struggling with their health. And so then when I'm sharing my passions, before it even clicked, I was sharing my passions, what I do. And some of them are like, oh my gosh, I'm traveling every month, going to all these events. I need workouts that could be on the go. I can do at hotels. And I was like, oh, I think I found an ideal avatar. And my business took off because I changed the way that I pitched my package. It was very similar, but I changed the way I pitched it. It's workouts that are made depending on what hotel you're at. If you're at this hotel, we'll make it specifically to there. So we had to do a little more work, but I was able to charge more because it was more concierge service. I was able to step up as more of a brand and authority, and it took my business off. And while I was working with all these business owners, I was naturally doing coaching calls and mindset work. I was helping them a lot with their business. And I would have never known I liked this if I didn't take the step years ago, because most times people are getting their hands bloody and dirty, digging, looking for gold. And while you're doing that and you're thinking, I'm wasting my time, I'm hurting myself, this isn't going nowhere, most times you find the diamond in the rough. And that diamond in the rough for me was business consulting. I started to help people in their business just free. And they started seeing results. It's like, I like this. I was like, I like helping people make money. So then I started offering it for free to some people to see if it really works. And they got incredible results of all different industries: financial, real estate, coaches, people that are going from passion to profit, like the whole gamut. I'm even working with a client right now that does like land acquisition deals of like big land developments. I have no clue, but I realize there's common principles and patterns. And so once I got that confidence and tested it and got testimonies, I started offering it. And now here I am today, where that's where I do full time. And now I actually travel around and speak and give workshops only on business, because I took that first step of being a personal trainer 4 years ago.
Damn, doesn't it feel good to get that first $147 online fitness program? Come on now. Look at the result. Look at the freaking result over here. And I love this because it's like, and I say that because a lot of people can sit here and in themselves and never think, well, if I charge this, what makes me think I can't be at the position that Jake is at, being a business consultant? He's a living byproduct of it, you know, and there's many people out there as well. And that's why for the audiences, you just have to start somewhere and you have to believe in yourself. And like in that, you have to understand that you also evolve. You also learn to adapt, because business is all about adapting, and business happens in the moment. And shifts and pivots can happen in the moment as well. And that's where you realize as well, hey, there's a demand here. I can come in here with my expertise. You know, and you are going to get those moments of oh my God, those aha moments. But you have to put yourself in a position to have an aha moment. And you have to go network. You have to go be places. You have to be around these people you want to be around. And that's where you're going to find some of those aha moments that take you to that next stepping stone of your life to then evolve you to where you're at today, brother. And that, I'll tell you right now, is incredible, because it is something a lot of people are missing, and you're being a living example of it.
Well, thank you for that. And you guys are as well. I mean, to see where you pivot and how professional your business is right now, it's incredible. Anyone, and that's a powerful thing I'm sure you guys talk about with brand positioning. I saw some podcasts you did in the past. Like, if anyone needs business coaching in the sense of like, especially in the fitness realm, I lead them to you. I've only met you in person once. We've talked a lot on social media, Instagram, and now we're finally on a podcast, but I'll lead them to you, because, you know, you guys established yourself as that, right? So one of the most important things I will say, and you brought this up, is you got to be adaptable. And you got to have a long-term vision in mind. You got to know exactly what you want. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get any goals achieved in the meantime, but you got to be ready to be flexible, to pivot on purpose. Because if you have that growth mindset, and a lot of people probably heard of the growth first fixed mindset, and that's, you know, been around for a long time. But what that really means is that every opportunity, like how I shared before, you get questioned about something you did, and now you're second guessing yourself. A fixed mindset will say, gosh, well, maybe they're right, and maybe I should just give up. A growth mindset, this is the actual application here, is to become aware that that was something that you're getting questioned on and you're doubting yourself. Step back from that and be like, how can I see that? Are they right or am I right? And that's usually where, like, if someone's doubting your business, you can, if someone's saying you're not going to make much money from this, like you're not a trainer that's like extra fit and you have thousands of followers, go be around other people that are successful, because there are other trainers that are making the woman. Let me be very clear. The woman who shared this experience, and shout out to Heather, I saw her. She shared the mentor way back to me. I saw her and I was like, she's just a normal looking health girl. Like, she wasn't like a fitness chick and all these things. That was my perception. And she was like, she shared how much money she was making, because she used to also be a nurse. And she was like, you know, I'm making around like $30,000 a month from this. And I about fell out of my shoes. And I was like, there's no way. Like, who would pay money? Like, I thought you had to be this fitness chick and all these things. And that broke my limiting belief real quick. So whenever you get those doubts, look around to other people, because the resources are out there, the people are out there that will show you that it's possible. And if it's not possible, you become the first one that makes it possible.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Well, let me ask you this. What books or any recommendations that you can give for self-development for people just dipping their toe in this space? What would you recommend?
In what space in particular? Because there's so many books.
No. In basically in personal development. We'll talk about that space.
Yeah. Once again, a lot can change in 4 years. 4 years ago, I despised reading books. I hated it. Like ever since I had to read like Moby Dick and all these crazy books in English class, I was like, I didn't even read them actually. I just did Spark Note. Oh, my English teacher's not listening, even though it doesn't matter.
I love it.
But when I learned and I reprogrammed how I look at reading and how it's only going to allow me to become a more successful businessman person instead of like me just like, gaining knowledge, I became addicted to reading books and listening to books, especially audibles. So I have a vast array of knowledge. And even though I might not be able to cite every single thing, a lot of it sits in my subconscious mind. And that's where I tell people, I'm like, you want to become like the best carpenter that has all the tools on his tool belt. So whenever you come up to any situation, any change, any problem, you have that tool and you pull it out right away. And so one book I would recommend, that's one of my top 3 books of all time, is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. That book, when I read it, it's only out of the 3 books I've read twice or listened to twice because it was that good. That book changed, and just, it's so simple, but he's so funny and charismatic with the way he teaches it that it actually resonates more. That's a powerful thing about speaking, is you don't want to be the stern teacher. You want to be charismatic. He's just very charismatic in the way he teaches it, but it's so profound and it releases a lot of limiting beliefs, and it allows you to tangibly understand how to have a millionaire mindset and what's the different rules or teachings that allow for that. And that book changed the way I think about money and the way I think about success. And it's a very, very simple read. It's not some sort of, 1940 novel that's, like Think and Grow Rich. Even though I love Think and Grow Rich too, it's a little harder to read. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is very, very friendly for new people. So I would highly recommend that. I know a lot of people say that to connect with me or whatnot, in the sense of like they say that, but they don't ever respond. And that's one of the things, is like you're never on a high horse too high that you can't respond to people, especially if they've spent an entire hour listening to your content. And so I make sure that's a very apparent that I respond back to those people. So find me on Instagram. That's my main platform. I'm on other media as well, but the main one is Instagram, at Jake Havron, my first and last name. And yeah, shoot me a message. I love hearing, and this is how you give massive value, just like what Ed Milet said. I love hearing what was your unique takeaway. Well, how did that change the perspective you had, or, broke the limiting belief you had? And I love hearing that. And you better believe I'll respond back, probably most likely with a voice message, because I love giving some.
There we go.
So, at Jake Havron. And if you want to find out more information about other things I do with coaching services, different masterminds, all that, that would just be www.jakehavron.com.
Guys, you heard it from the man himself. Jake, what is one big piece of advice you can leave off to all our listeners today in one single sentence?
You're always one step away from completely changing your life.
Done. You guys heard it.
I love it.
If you guys got value out of this podcast, if you got one thing, just one thing that you know you can apply into your life right now, not tomorrow, not later, right now, go do that. Go please show some love. Show Jake some love. Like, subscribe, comment, share, drop a rating, leave a review. Because the more love you can show, the more love we can show back. Till next time on the Sweat It Out podcast.